Boker Tov, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Hi There with Rabbi Leah. Today is Tuesday, March 24th, and I want to apologize to everybody because I thought I was doing everyone a service by yesterday telling you all what the correct date was, and in actuality, I gave you the wrong date. I guess that staying at home, you kind of lose track of really what day and time it is. But today is Tuesday the 24th, and I wanted to go back a couple of days to Shabbat. And some of you were able to watch the service live, and some of you did not. But we finished the second book of the Torah. We finished the book of Shemot, which is known in English as Exodus. And so we have gotten to a critical point in the history of our ancestors because the first book, the book of Breshit, which is the book of creation, also known as Genesis, gives us the background of our early ancestors, our patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, our matriarchs, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, and all of their progeny. And at the end of the book of Genesis, Joseph, who is Jacob and Rachel's youngest son, has gone off to Egypt, not of his own accord. He has been sold into slavery. He goes off to Egypt, and he becomes a big macher. You know what a big macher is, right? He's the guy who has the seats named after him in the synagogue, the one who donates for the classrooms, and so on. Joseph becomes a big macher, and we come to find out that in a number of ways, he reconciles with his family, his father and his brothers who had not treated him very nicely. And he goes on to become second in command only to Pharaoh. And as a result of his high office in Egypt, he is able to provide his family, as well as many of the other Israelites who come to Egypt during the famine, he's able to provide them with the kind of food they need. And then, of course, they become very numerous, and the book of Exodus begins by telling us that many years after Joseph has already died, a new Pharaoh arises in Egypt who didn't know Joseph and didn't know what he had done for the people in terms of seeing them through this horrible, dire famine. So we all know the story, and I'm not going to go into the whole thing now, except to say that in just a couple of weeks, we're going to be sitting down at our virtual Passover Seder and talking about all of the events that occurred with slavery and with the plagues and so on and so forth. But last week, we finished the last Torah portion. This past Saturday, just a couple of days ago, we finished the last Torah portion of the book of Shemot, the book of Exodus. And the reason this is important is because we're going to really take a little twist now in the narrative. Because up until this time, it's been very much a narrative about our story, our history, our ancestors, our trials and tribulations as slaves in Egypt, what we went through, and finally crossing the Sea of Reeds to get into to begin our journey into the Promised Land. Vayakhel Pekudei, which was this past Shabbat, was actually a double Torah portion. And we've talked about this a couple of times before, but it never hurts to repeat that there are 54 portions in the Torah. And of course, there are 52 Saturdays during the year. So 52 weeks during the year. So what do we do with those extra Torah portions? 54 Torah portions, 52 weeks. And what complicates it even further is the fact that There are some weeks where we don't read the regular Torah portion, and certainly some Shabbats where we don't read the regular Torah portion, because we have a holiday, or it's a new moon, or it's a festival. And so there's a special Torah portion assigned to that particular day. So we end up with these extra Torah portions, and what do we do with them? Well, in a regular year, what we do is we double up. So we read two Torah portions on the same Shabbat. And every few years in the Hebrew calendar, we have a leap month, believe it or not a leap year or a leap day, but a leap month. And that's the month of Adar, the month in which Purim falls. So last week's Torah portion was very interesting because it gave us a sense of completion. And what has been completed? Well, the Israelites have built the Mishkan, which is the portable tabernacle that they're going to schlep with them through the desert for the next 40 plus years while they are making their journey to the Promised Land. They've gotten all the instructions they need about what the particular fancy clothing is that the high priest Aaron and his sons are going to wear when they do their work. And they've gotten a lot of the laws about how human beings live with one another. Laws about treatment of your employees, laws about treatment of animals, laws about treatment of your fellow human in a business transaction. And it's remarkable to see that so many of the things that were written about thousands of years ago are laws that still pertain to us today and that we still look at as important within our communities and our greater society, particularly when it comes to laws regarding business transactions. Very, very interesting. So Pekudei ends on an interesting note, because once all these things have been completed, and God now has the Mishkan, the tabernacle in which God is going to dwell with the Israelites on their journeys, there's an interesting phenomenon. The Israelites are going to get up and move every once in a while. In fact, I believe there are 52 locations that they go to between the time they begin their travels and when they actually end up on the shore of the Jordan River, ready to make the cross into the Promised Land. And at each of those stops, they have to get a signal as to where they're supposed to put down the tabernacle. And they're supposed to get a signal as to when they're supposed to get up and move. So how does that happen? Well, the Almighty has arranged for a certain sign and uses this throughout their journeys. And at night, there is a fire resting upon the tabernacle, not on it itself, but symbolically above the tabernacle. During the daytime, there's a cloud that descends on the tabernacle. Now, you wouldn't be able to see a cloud at night, and although you would be able to see a fire during the day, most likely, it's going to be much more brilliant against the backdrop of a dark sky. So when this fire rises up and begins to move, that is the signal to the Israelites that they too are to pack up their camp and start to move. And similarly, during the day, when the Anan, the cloud, is over the tabernacle and it gets up and moves, that's the signal to the Israelites that they are to get up and go. It's a pretty good system. It's not hard to figure out what it's time to do. So there are a couple of instances where the Israelites become over anxious. Don't forget, they're still like in their toddler years. They've just come out of Egypt. They're just kind of feeling their way. They're trying to figure out, how to live eating this stuff called manna, which they get every day, which we really don't know what it tasted like. We have some idea from descriptions what it might have looked like. But they're going to be eating this stuff for 40 years. So, if you ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day for 40 years, you'd be pretty bored too. So they're getting used to living in community. Remember, when they were in Egypt, they were told when to get up, when to work, when to go to sleep, how many bricks to make. Everything was told to them. They were slaves, and so they had very, very few opportunities to make decisions for themselves. Now they're learning what it's like to live in a community and to have to make those decisions. So this fire at night and this cloud during the day are there to help them understand when they're supposed to move. And because they're still like toddlers or maybe teenagers, and we all know what teenagers can be like sometimes, they are anxious to go. And there are a couple times when they actually get up and go, and they engage in a battle. And guess what? They lose their shirts because they weren't instructed to go. And you don't just determine on your own when it's time to make that move. So at the end of Pekudei, as we do at the end of every book of the Torah, we say some special words. And we've just completed reading an entire book. It is a daunting task. It's a lot of work. In most traditional congregations, the entire Torah portion is read. If you come to our services, you know that we usually do a 1 or 2 aliyot, which is anywhere from 4 to 10 or 12 verses, and which in and of itself is difficult to learn. So at the end of a book, we celebrate. And we celebrate by using the following words. And the words are chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek, which means be strong, and let us be strengthened. And it's something that the entire congregation says together. In fact, when you get to the end of a book in the Torah, everybody chants it together. And it sounds like this. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. And again, it means be strong, and let us be strengthened. And I was thinking a lot about that this past Shabbat, simply because things got really real this weekend. And in fact, Friday night, when Governor Newsom announced that we are all to stay in our homes and not go out, and only leave if you have to, in order to make sure that we are not giving each other the coronavirus. If God forbid we have it and don't have any symptoms, and we could potentially get somebody sick, even though we may feel fine. So when we use those words, chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek, it is not only are we asking for ourselves to have strength, but nit chazek is a form of the verb that is reflexive. And a reflexive verb is one in which, and I know I'm kind of getting into the weeds here in Hebrew grammar, but if you remember from your English grammar classes, a reflexive verb is a verb where you are both the doer and the recipient. So, for example, I comb my hair. I'm the one combing, and I'm doing it, and I'm also the recipient of the action. Or I brush my teeth. I'm doing the brushing, and it's my teeth that are being brushed. So when we say chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek, what we're really saying is be strong, and let us strengthen one another. Because in my strengthening myself, I am also strengthening you. And it's very true. especially now as we look at this pandemic, that when I keep myself safe, when I wash my hands, about 100 times a day, when I use sanitizer, when I use Clorox wipes, when I don't shake your hand, when I stand at least 6 feet away from you when I'm talking, when I cover my sneeze or my cough in my arm or with a napkin or a Kleenex and then immediately throw it out and wash my hands again. Not only am I keeping myself strong, but I am saving those around me from potentially becoming infected in the event that, God forbid, I have the virus and don't know it. So it's this reflexiveness of the verb that is such a great descriptor. And I think, we've heard it many, many times over the past couple of weeks that we are really all responsible for one another. We've had some issues with a lot of younger people out on beaches, in bars. Much of that has been shut down now. And I know it must be excruciating for them not to be able to get together with their friends and do the things they're usually doing. But for the purpose of humanity and for all of us, that's what we need to do. There is an expression in Judaism that says the following. It comes from the ancient rabbis, and it says the following. Kol Yehudim Averim Ze Leze. I'm going to translate it accurately, and then I'm going to put a little spin on it. Kol Yehudim Averim Ze Leze. And that means every Jew is responsible one for the other. I think that in a situation like the one in which we find ourselves right now, we definitely want to broaden that expression to say every human being is responsible one for the other. And if you think back, it was one person infected with the virus who infected somebody else, and then it just exploded geometrically. So Judaism believes that if you take one life, it's as if you have taken the entire world. And similarly, if you save one life, it's as if you've saved the entire world. And I think a lot about that in terms of the scene from the movie Schindler's List. At the very end of the movie, we see the kever, the grave in which Schindler is buried. And then there comes a procession of people, old people, younger people, young adults, children, little tiny babies, and so on. And these people are the ones who are the first, second, and third generations of the people whom Schindler saved. And we get a real visceral, a very real depiction of just what it means to save a life. That it isn't only one life that's saved, but it's all those other lives that came afterwards that are saved as well. So we really have an obligation as Jews, because this is what our tradition teaches us, to be responsible one for another, but not just for ourselves, for all human beings. And that means that if somebody does have to go to the grocery store, or somebody does have to gas up the car, that it isn't a leisure day out, that it is done with purpose, it's done quickly, and you go to the grocery store and you get what you need and not more than what you need. Nobody needs 100 rolls of toilet paper. And so I'm sure that none of you, and hopefully none of your families, have engaged in that kind of frenzy buying. I know that we're living through some very challenging times. And one of my favorite sages of the Middle Ages was known as Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. And let me tell you a little bit about him, and I'm turning so I can read to you. He was also known as Reb Nachman, Nachman from Uman. He was the founder of the Breslov Hasidic movement, and he was a great grandson of the Baal Shem Tov. And he used to combine things like esoteric secrets of Judaism and in-depth Torah scholarship and so on. He was born in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth on April 4th of 1772. So his birthday's coming up in just a couple of weeks. And he died October 16th of 1810 in the Ukraine. And so he was 38 years old when he died. He was married in 1780. He was married to Sasha Ephraim, and she was born in 1785. So she was 13 years younger than he was, but she died in 1807. Can you imagine at the age of 22? He had Rebbe Nachman had a lot of sadness in his life. He did have quite a few children, and I think it might have been because he remarried after Sashia died, because I'm counting at least 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 kids. He did not have 7 kids with her in the short time that they were married. So he must have been married after that. But even though he had a baby, a young baby son who died, and so on, he went through a tremendous amount of sadness in his life. But he is most well known for having said, "Never, ever, 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 ever give up hope." An incredibly hopeful man, despite some of the terrible sadness that he had in his life. And there is a quote from Rebbe Nachman that has been turned into a song by a number of different artists. And the saying, I'll say it for you in the Hebrew and then I'll translate it. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tsar ma'od. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tsar ma'od, which means all of the world is a narrow bridge. And then the second part says, V'ha'ikar lo lefached klal, which means the idea though, but the whole purpose is to not be afraid. So even though he's depicting the world as a narrow bridge, and by the way, the name for Egypt in Hebrew is Mitzrayim, and Mitzrayim means a narrow place. Rabbi Nachman said, Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tsar ma'od, very narrow bridge. V'ha'ikar lo lefached klal. But the secret or the reason for existence is to not be afraid. And the song goes like this. And some of you may know it, and you can sing it with me, even though I can't hear you singing it. Again, you'll have to forgive me. My voice is still a little raspy. I think from overuse, or I'm not sure, but you'll forgive if it cracks a little bit. So it goes like this. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tsar me'od, gesher tsar me'od, gesher tsar me'od. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tsar me'od, gesher tsar me'od. V'ha'ikar, v'ha'ikar, lo lefached, lo lefached klal. V'ha'ikar, v'ha'ikar, lo lefached klal. And that's the whole thing. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tsar me'od. The whole world is a narrow bridge. My neighbor is pounding on the wall, and so my dog Snickers is going a little crazy, but that's part of these videos. And we're just going to continue, even though the pounding is continuing too, and hopefully this time you'll sing with me. There are some hand signals that are things that are done with this too, usually by the kids at camp. I'll do them for your entertainment, but you certainly don't have to use them. Kol haolam kulo gesher tsar me'od, gesher tsar me'od, gesher tsar me'od, kol haolam kulo gesher tsar me'od, gesher tsar me'od. Ve'ha'ikar, ve'ha'ikar, lo lefached klar. Ve'ha'ikar, ve'ha'ikar, lo lefached klar. Yai, lai, 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 lai. So, as Rebbe Nachman would say, the entire world is a narrow bridge, but the secret and your purpose is to not be afraid. And so we will get through this together. I miss you all so much. I'm hoping to make a couple visits to Seacrest just to pick up some stuff, to start getting ready for Pesach, and to say hello to a few of you. In the meantime, a couple of things. Don't forget, every morning at 9:30, Monday through Friday, you're going to be able to watch Chai There with Rabbi Leah. That's me. And then on Friday evening at 4:15, I will be at the Katzen residence to light candles live. I'll then go into the synagogue and I will live stream the blessings for the other buildings. Saturday morning, services at 10 o'clock. I'll be live streaming from home. And Saturday afternoon, the 28th, starting this Saturday, we will be having our Shabbat Chaverim from 1 until 2. And I hope you will join me. The last time I spoke to you, I asked if you would please send me questions that I could answer. We're going to play Stump the Rabbi. And I haven't gotten any emails yet, so I hope you will start that. Send them to LHERZ. L, my first initial for Leah, HERZ, my last name, at seacrestvillage.org. And when I get those questions, I'm going to use those as the basis for my Stump the Rabbi, which we'll do this coming Saturday. I hope you'll join me for everything that I'm doing. It's a new experience for me, but I'm starting to get used to it and starting to enjoy it. Again, I'm not going to say goodbye. I'm going to say lehitraot. I will see you soon, and don't forget to tune in tomorrow morning for more with Chai There with Rabbi Leah. Take care, shalom, and blessings to you all.